Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, an original shark from the hit TV show Shark Tank. And with me is Ken Berenger. Ken is with a company called OriginClear. Tell the folks out there about OriginClear.
So OriginClear is a clean water technology company. We call it a clean water incubation hub. What we've had the ability to do is incubate a number of really unique technologies that allow us to scale down water treatment and recycling. Look, the idea is save the planet, recycle water, okay?
Yeah.
Only 1% of water is recycled in the United States, okay? That's a tragedy.
Wow.
Now, 90% of our water pollution comes from industrial, agricultural, and commercial use, right?
Okay.
It's not you and I flushing toilets that's causing the problem.
Right.
Billions, trillions of gallons are being made dirty every day up at the source. And these cities are trying to figure out how to deal with it. So what we've done is incubated a number of companies, which are now moving towards a NASDAQ listing,
Right.
that actually deal with treating and recycling the water at the site of pollution. This is a game changer because it's the only scalable model, okay?
Yeah.
Water has been a government monopoly for 100 years.
Okay.
And they've handled it about as well as they could, but remember, it's a government monopoly.
Right.
It took an entrepreneurial approach, to say, okay, this is broken. Ignore what they've done for the past century. How do we fix it right now with the technology that exists today? And that's what I'm proud to say we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, as we've talked a lot about water, and it's a life-threatening situation that is occurring right now, right?
It's one of the greatest threats to our long-term survival that no one really seems to know about. But if we don't make a major turnaround in the next 25 years, we'll be actually going through more water than we can produce.
Well, the markets out there are aware of this problem. I mean, banks, investors want to invest in the problem, but they're not doing it the right way, I understand?
Right. So there are major funds already kicking down doors to invest in water projects, Morgan Stanley infrastructure project. That's not you and me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's certainly not the average guy. But they're going to continue to throw billions and billions and billions of dollars at the centralized model.
Right.
The elegance here, the solution is actually in going small, placing an individual pod where a business exists. As the water leaves that business, it leaves the pod as pre-treated water. So a city can take it, it can go back into a river, it can go into a water supply, and there's no need to deal with some polluted source of water down at the, where we're drinking it.
Yes. Oh yeah, awesome. So your company, you're putting these pods into places where the water's coming out and being sent on to other utilities, or how does it work?
All of the above. So 90% of water is consumed by agriculture, commercial use, and industry.
Gotcha.
It's not us, okay? So if you actually can treat and reuse water at the source, not only do you save trillions of gallons of water,
right,
but you actually solve the problem at the point of pollution. So yeah, we've been very successful. Consulting engineers around the world are now raving about what we do.
Yeah.
Our next step is to turn it into an asset class by allowing individual investors to be involved in this, where they actually have a stake in the equipment, almost like a master limited partnership for energy.
Yes, that's what I wanted to get to. Is that the folks that are listening, they may be thinking, is there an opportunity for me to get in this industry, right?
Right.
How would this work, and what is this opportunity?
So I'm glad you asked that. So right now, things like water, I mentioned that VCs and banks are kicking down doors. The average investor has never had the opportunity to get involved in something in the very early stages, in its founding stages. I'll give you an example. When a monopoly broke up about 20 years ago, you and I are old enough to remember Ma Bell and the Baby Bells, right? So there were no innovations in Ma Bell. There were no investors in Ma Bell. It just plodded along, it just gobbled stuff up. But, when it broke up and the Baby Bells were born, that gave birth to the modern telecom industry and to the modern internet industry.
Right.
If you were just a retail investor 25 years ago and bought a couple of stocks like American Tower, AMT on the big board.
Right.
$10,000 investment today would be worth almost $300,000. The average investor doesn't get that.
Right.
OriginClear is the only company in the water space that's exclusively working with individual investors, giving them an opportunity to actually invest before the institutions come.
Gotcha.
That's
awesome.
rare.
Nice. this is a great opportunity because the demand is there. And now you have a product and an opportunity for people to participate. So in wrapping up here, what is the big picture, the long-term outcome that you're looking for, and why is there such excitement for this industry?
Well, you've spotted a few good winners in your past. And the fact that, and I don't have to speak for you, but, you've partnered with us because I think you're excited about what this is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Ken, for 40 plus years, I've been investing in projects and talking to innovative companies. And when it comes to opportunity with what we've just talked about and the direction OriginClear is taking, this is a game changer. And that's why we wanted to be a partner in the venture.
Right.
So we're excited.
As a fan and as a viewer on Shark Tank, I probably wished a couple of times I could actually put a little bit of money alongside. You said, I'm going to buy 40% of that company. If I can get 2%, that would be great. Now, the average investor, not the accredited guy, but just, a regular Joe, a regular mom and pop, they never have that opportunity.
Right.
In this case, I think the reason that we're so excited to work together is you have some of the smartest audience in the world. They understand that you don't get behind something without really feeling that this could be a game changer. They actually have the opportunity to invest at the same time with very similar terms as you.
Yes.
That's not something they're going to get a lot.
That is a good deal because many times when we get involved, we get in at a founder's price, and for you to be offering that same deal to the folks that come in now, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we're excited. We're just thrilled to have you on board.
Fantastic. Very exciting talk today.
Well, that was actually a really good interview. It's a very crisp, clear statement of what's so special about what we do, right? Everything we do is wonderful, except that, other people do modular systems, other people do water engineering, other people even do water as a service, but no one makes it open and available to the everyday investor. And of course, as you know, we'll be opening a crowdfunding very shortly, and there'll be more about that. Anyway, so let's get it on right now. Bingo. All right, March 28th, briefing number 255. Save the planet or recycle water. It reminds me of, that was that 60s thing, was it? Save water, shower together. Those of you who are old enough to remember that. But anyway, which I think is a wonderful idea. Save water, shower together. All right, so we'll safe harbor statement, of course, and disclaimer on the regulation DN, now the test the waters statement that we're making. And let's take a look at what's going on in the world of X. Eugene totally spread the love. Thank you very much. Keith Rutan very well said. I agree 100% with you, my friend. Bob Bruce, Riggs, I keep trying to click on your icons. Yes, well, it's a feature, not a bug, of my screen. I need to figure out how to make that passport disappear, but all in good time. All right, let's take a look now at the X feed and what's been going on in the world. And it'll be a rapid review, but of course, as usual, exciting things going on, right? Now, we have growing, and I think I commented on this last week, but basically, core CPI inflation is nearly double the Fed's long-term target. What are they going to do? There's really not much they can do. So my comment on this, inflation is an underlying driver of change. For example, hyperinflation of water and sewer rates is leading to a growing water independence movement and a new stable asset from Main Street investors. Yes, I covered this actually, the sewer tsunami. I'm going to keep on trucking here. And as usual, these threads that I get into, guess what? You're going to have to go on RigSec to track that stuff. But I had a great interview with Josh Baker at Intelligent Conversations. This podcast will be excerpted soon. Very smart interviewer. And then more about how to handle success and failure and disruption and so forth and so on. And here's a very good 19 traits of top 1% performing businesses, and we agree 100%. Internal and board-facing key performance indicators, audited and annual financials, which of course we have, closes this books each month and quarter, of course. Not only do we, of course, we by law, we have to report our quarterlies and our annual financials, but also we now have in real time, just about in real time, our revenues being tracked, which is very hard to do because you have to track all kinds of percentages of completion and so forth. Financials are mostly up and to the right. High-performing companies are profitable and growing, of course. Board materials distributed on time. Strong employees stick around, and this is very, very true. Employee churn is low. We have a very, very loyal team. Leaders set deadlines, are mostly met. If we never meet deadlines, something is wrong. If we meet all deadlines, then we're probably not setting high enough deadlines. Healthy level of stress, not burning out. Healthily working hard on an aspiring mission. No drama, no politics. I have to say that I'm very proud of the team. We just don't indulge in politics. It's a wonderful thing. And, I think the team is very serious, actually. Okay, what else we got? Problem employees identified, moved on quickly, clear business plan, exactly. Core values and behaviors are well known, of course. We publish our code of ethics on the website, but more importantly, I believe it's completely integrated into what's going on in the company. Stuff about board meetings, which we're going to be seeing a lot more board meetings at the NASDAQ level. That's a whole different game, which I can't wait. Simple stays simple. Underperforming organizations love to make easy things hard. Great ones don't. That is a really good one. I like that one a lot. I'm pulling, not pushing. And this is great. When I'm on the board of great teams, I find I'm usually asking, are you sure we're not trying to do too much? This is a big problem with ambitious teams, is scope, to start doing this like a million things. So I was like, wait a minute, let's cut things back and focus. So very, very important. Pretty repeatable processes, growth mindset. Leaders address problem areas directly. Company office vibe is good. And leadership answers questions well, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a really good set of standards. I thought it was very good myself. So I recommend it. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Now, $117.90 in January 2024 equals $100 in 2021, just 3 years ago. So this is actual inflation. It's far more. So what do you do about your savings? Because you keep your savings in dollars, they have to grow at an insane rate to get anywhere. So you have to think about that. This is a video about Jeff Bezos talking about leadership. I wonder how long it is. I wonder if we can actually open up the thread and just take a look at what he says. You don't choose a passion chooses you. Take pride in your effort, not your talents. Good leaders are right a lot. To be right a lot, you have to listen a lot. Very, very important. And you must change your mind a lot. I'm a big believer in this mistake-based marketing. To be right a lot, you must seek out info that challenges your most deeply held beliefs. True, true, true. Be stubborn on vision and flexible on details. Without failure, there's no invention. These are very, very good. So it's an actual video where Jeff Bezos looks like GeekWire. I don't actually have the link here to that video, but nonetheless, there it is summarized. Now, this is something interesting. You may have some ideas about how China is. This is going to blow your mind.
I'm going to tell you the 7 major ways that China has changed in the past 5 years. I've been coming here on and off for 10 years and maybe a little bit more than that, and I have a lot of stories. I'll weave those stories into how the country has changed pre-COVID versus COVID. Number 1 is automation. Whether you're getting on a high-speed train or you're getting onto the subway, everything is automated, right? Through the use of personal identification cards and face recognition cameras. They've got everything set up. They've also got the Chinese equivalent of Apple Pay everywhere for everything. There is nothing that you want to do in this country that you cannot do without the Chinese equivalent of Apple Pay. Also, you go into the factories and there are robots everywhere. This is important because it's different from how we perceive China in the US. So in the US, we think of China as like a cheap labor country with them just throwing people at everything and them just being really cheap. But the reality is that they're automating and they're putting robots everywhere they can at the same time. That's a huge change from 5 years ago. Second big major change is electric vehicles. They're everywhere, much more than in the United States. So in the US, we have Tesla, and then you see occasionally a few other brands. Less than 10% of the cars on the road. In China, it's like 30 to 40% of the cars on the road are fully electric. And it's not just Tesla. Tesla is here, but there are dozens of other Chinese brands that you have never heard of that are selling cars as cheap as $10,000. Not like shit cars, you know, not like a tricycle, but like a full-blown sedan for $10,000. And they're everywhere. Very big deal. Number 3, they fix their air. Part of it is the electric vehicles, right? Because they're not putting as much exhaust into the air, but they fixed it in other ways. I'm in Shanghai right now, and 10 years ago, I remember arriving in the airport, and you couldn't see from one side of the airport to the other side of the airport because there was actually smog inside the building. The air is not perfect in China, especially when you go more inland into the country, okay? It's still a little smoggy, and then also like, but it's significantly better. It's kind of an amazing point because we think of, again, in the US, we think of China as a smog-filled country with no environmental regulations or anything like that. They fix the air. 4, this one in particular absolutely blew my mind. 5 years ago, this country was not civilized. What do I mean by that? People bump into you, people cut lines, people spit on your feet, they do an open mouth cough into your face, they piss in random places, they just drive like fucking maniacs. It's different now. People are civilized. I'm in China. I feel like I'm in Japan now. Okay, so like all the stereotypes of Japan where people are like polite and the service is excellent. That's what it feels like in the major cities, in particular in China now. That's amazing. I used to shit my pants all the time in China because there were no public bathrooms, and when you finally did find a bathroom that was public or accessible to the public, right, there was never any toilet paper in it. That has changed as well. Not sure how they've made a more civilized society. There were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, posters all over the place that kind of encouraged people to be more civilized, which is interesting, right? That's not really something that you see in the US. They seem to have made the country significantly more civilized in a bunch of different ways. So one, that automation that I was talking about earlier in the video is a big deal. I don't know how many years ago, let's call it 5, 6 years ago, probably 5 years ago, I showed up in a smaller town in, let's say, the suburbs of China, and I got off the high-speed train, so they had the high-speed infrastructure back then, and I tried to hail a taxi, and 3 men who drove taxis kind of like approached me, and they're like, yeah, we don't run the meters in this town. So the taxi meters that you see if you like get a taxi in New York or whatever, they refuse to run them because the taxi drivers figured that if they could all coordinate and cooperate, they could make more money. That kind of stuff has gone down in part through the ubiquitous automation, right? Because now I can pay every taxi, every Chinese equivalent Uber, I can pay all that stuff with my phone. So propaganda, automation, and then also people tell me that like the government uses a lot of KPIs in order to improve the quality of the services. So anytime you have a problem, you can call a phone number and they'll not only try to solve that problem for you, but they'll follow up weeks later trying to verify whether or not it was truly solved. That to me is kind of mind-blowing because it's one thing to throw up high-speed rail, train stations, build these amazing buildings and all that, as they've done for the past 30 years. But to change the culture, that's much more difficult. But they did it. Someone just approached me randomly on the street, like, how are you? Where are you from? And then when I replied in Chinese, they kind of just backed off. So, like, things are not perfect. Once they figured out that I speak Chinese, they're like, okay, I can't really scam this person, however they're gonna scam me. Major change 5 years ago versus today. Way fewer foreigners. I'm probably in the place that has more foreigners than right now. Like literally, I'm in the Shanghai equivalent of Times Square, and there are more foreigners here. Look at the fucking sky, okay? Like, they fixed the air. They fixed it. There are more foreigners here than any other place, and there just aren't that many foreigners. There's one in front of me, but there just aren't that many. There used to be many more foreigners in China. That's one big major change. I don't totally know what's going on there. Part of it could have been the lockdowns in the past couple of years. Another part of it could be the perception of China that you get in foreign countries. That's turned negative in this country. But the foreigners are few. The ones who look like me are disproportionately Russian. So a lot of the white people you see in Russia, you look at them, they look a little different. They look like they're Russian, and you can verify that when you hear them speak. That's a big change from 5 years ago. 6, the kind of technology and the supply chain and the way of doing business has changed tremendously. I visited, I don't know, 8 different factories. Factories are opening their own e-commerce stores and plugging in directly into the Chinese equivalent of TikTok and the Chinese equivalent of Amazon, and the factories are super automated. And like, it's not just like the technology, but like the speed of business and the way business works feels significantly more advanced in China than it does in the United States. And it didn't necessarily feel that way 5 years ago. Last thing I would say, the 7th and final point, 5 years ago versus today, is that my perception before I came here, and the perception generally of Americans of China, is that the place got worse, that it was some sort of like dystopian, terrorized world where you can't do anything and there were lockdowns and all that. And that's not true. And on top of that, I'm shell-shocked. Like, I'm actually blown away, because in general, this country feels like, for lack of a better word, a Japanified version of China. It just feels like I'm stepping into the future. It feels like everything has gotten better over the past 5 years in this country. It is a more harmonious society. I think the blips on that, the kind of things on the graph where that wasn't really happening and not true over the past 5 years, were COVID lockdowns. But in general, everything here is better. So what do I mean in terms of what has changed in the past 5 years versus today? It just feels like in my home country, over the same 5 years, everything got worse. And that is the most powerful, jarring revelation. 什么？保守？拿着？我不想要手表，我不想要皮包，谢谢啊。So that guy was trying to sell me like purses and watches. Everything. Okay, so again, things are not perfect here by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like that doesn't happen in New York either, obviously, right? And I'm in a tourist area in Shanghai. The guy was just trying to sell me watches, probably counterfeit. But it just feels in general that everything in my home country got worse, and that's brutal. It's brutal to think about that. So, I don't know, you can interpret this information however you feel like you want to, but the reason why I think this is so important is that countries change and they're on different trajectories, and I don't know what the trajectory of China will be over the next 5 years. I don't know what the trajectory of the United States or other countries will be over the next 5 years. But it is very jarring and very powerful to feel how different and how much better this country is 5 years later, and how much worse my home country feels over the same 5 years. It's a mess. And that's the powerful lesson to you. Thank you for watching. Bye.
A fascinating judgment that I really wanted to play. It's kind of long, about 11 minutes, but it was really a message that I think we need to understand what's going on. Basically, in my opinion, automation and all the things that are going on in the world really are kicking in, right? And so we have a situation where we have kind of a leveling of the playing field caused by automation. Now, this is going to come to our country. He has seen this happen more and more in China, because they've been able to implement it perhaps earlier, perhaps on a more decree basis, but it's inevitable. The automation is going to happen. So that is, I thought, really, really interesting, and I thought it was worth spending the time on. All right, let's take a look here. Sure, let's play this one real fast. I remember when you could pay $120 for Microsoft Office, and that was it. Now you pay, $14.99 a month. So it adds up to a lot more over time. And yet we like it because they're much more responsive. They throw more things in for free. I don't mind paying monthly with Microsoft 365 because of all the value they add. So it's more profitable and the end user likes it more. So Water on Demand now is an investment vehicle. And by the way, we're not the only people doing water as a service, but we're the only people who are making it open to everyday investors. And that, of course, is our overarching message these days. All right. One pellet, this is fascinating. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I'm a big fan of uranium, of nuclear power. One pellet of uranium could provide enough nuclear energy to power an office building for hundreds of years, immediately rendering the climate change debate moot, i.e., meaningless overnight. Well, that is just my personal bias. And then here's a fascinating story that Ken actually brought in. This is an AP story, which is so much water is being wasted by, in Georgia, as much as 85% is being wasted. And so we have, this is a story about Pritchard, Alabama, where they lose over half, sometimes more than 60% of the drinking water they buy. And of course, they have to pay for it, right? This is a poor neighborhood. Trillions of gallons of drinking water are lost every year, especially in these small communities that are declining. And what's happening is industries leaving these cities, and they themselves are becoming less able to pay the bills. And there's lots of toxic water and these old pipes. Jackson, Mississippi was already losing an estimated 65% of its water when the system also almost collapsed in 2022. And here's the problem. At the time, I recall, a friend of mine is actually a state representative in Jackson. The state capital is Jackson, Mississippi. And I said, what's going on with that? And he said, oh, no, that's the city. It's not my problem. The cities are virtually being abandoned by state and federal governments. And there's just no money being allocated. Meanwhile, the EPA is increasing their mandate. They just put in some new rules for those Teflon type materials, PFAS, things like that. The cities have no idea how they're going to pay for it. They try and raise rates. That just increases the amount of defaults and then comes back to zero. So this is why our mission is urgent. It is not just a wonderful idea. It is urgent that we, disengage business from the central systems because they're being choked to death. Well, it's really a water independence movement, in my opinion. So that's that story. And I don't have to go too crazy about that because I think you get it. People are selling tech stocks. I wonder what's going on. There's a ton of selling of tech stocks. And tech stocks were leading the pack, not so much. Now, here's a story that has to do with water as an investment option. So far, they're talking about things like ETFs and so forth. Nothing wrong with ETFs. I think ETFs are a handy way to invest, but your returns are not the top returns. They are perhaps a safe investment. And then we have here, San Francisco has been dumping its water. Well, it turns out that this is very, very common. If you see just in the Northeast in 1 year, over 1,400 combined sewer overflow events. So, and about 6% of its total discharge is sewage, which is nasty. And that's going on all the time as well. All right. And then, of course, the point being made, which we're going to make some more about the water systems, is that we saw a tremendous problem with the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Now, some people are saying cyber attack, this, that, and the other thing, could have been incompetence. What's important is how dependent we are on the infrastructure. And that's the horrible part, right? And that's where our job in water has got to be, again, to decentralize water systems so they are not so vulnerable. All right, we'll be talking a lot more about that. By the way, there's outbreaks of Legionnaire's disease in the tap water going on. And it turns out that when hail falls on a solar farm, a bunch of toxic chemicals go into the groundwater. Well, just another source of toxic water. And then Grant Cardone posted that rents are currently 50% lower than mortgages in 50 cities. And that means that rents are going to explode. Imagine a rent going from $1,800 to $8,000. Even if he is wrong, he says it goes to $4,000. That is painfully scary. I was listening to the All In Summit about a year ago, and Elon Musk, doing okay, right? And so they said, do you feel secure about your cash position? He goes, no, it's just that my cash horizon's further out. That's all. He still has a concern about running out of cash. And yet he's got billions. So what it tells you is you will always have that, and you have to learn to rise above it. I have people who get very like, oh, I don't know how we're going to make it and so forth. And one of my jobs in the company is to go, okay, here's how we're going to handle it. We're going to do this. And they go, oh, okay, fine. Actually, don't react like that. That was kind of overdoing it. But nonetheless, it was, it is true that it's very easy to get rattled by all the changes happening and this, that, and the other thing. And it's amazing how when things are going in the right direction, problems occur. There's some kind of legal problem that comes up, and then boom, it just gets cleaned up. Tom Marchicello, our COO, just had a legal win where we cleaned up an argument, and very, very beneficially, everybody was happy. This goes on all the time, and that's really a sign that things are going well, in my opinion. So I don't have to do a lot of this, but I do have to occasionally go, hey guys, we're actually doing okay. All right, now we're getting close to, this is now 2 days post. Elon Musk posted about the job is about manufacturing, not so much about invention, although invention is important. But for example, we have had success scaling up. Modular water revenues jumped 7 times from 2021 to 2023, estimated. And that is really all about the hard work, in my opinion, which is how to scale up a business. All right, gold, this is the final thing where gold just hit a record high. And apparently there's a lot of accumulation going on by China and so forth. It's all about hard assets. And as we are always saying, we're working on water as an investable asset. All right, so that takes care of the news. All right, now I was talking about the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And in fact, we had commentary from Kevin Harrington about this. Let's hear what he has to say.
Oh my God, I'm still in shock from this horrific accident. And my heart goes out to the victims. But I do have a question. Did you see how easily a major piece of our infrastructure was destroyed? And this made me realize how vital my mission is, helping OriginClear ticker symbol OCLN, with their mission of decentralizing water treatment. Right now, a handful of mega systems serve 90% of our population with clean water. Anything centralized is vulnerable, and it makes sense to spread the risk. Water is our most vital commodity. Help me support OriginClear with their mission of making the water network more robust and attack-proof. Check out oc.gold/shark. Thank you.
What's going on is that we are about to launch our crowdfunding Test the Waters and sending people to a reservation page. So we had of course, Kevin Harrington is working closely with us. So he's recorded a series of videos, and this is one of them. And of course, it uses the shock of the horrendous tragedy that occurred as a way to underline the need to make our water infrastructure more robust. There'll be more of these. This was one of 3 that have been created, and I just want to give you a quick look. All right. So with that, I think that I want to reserve the last part of the show to get Ken to come on board. AJ is celebrating the evening mass, but
He's in the church choir. So I wasn't in the choir. I just had my daughter in the procession. So, so we got out, and I waved to him on the way out of the church. I was like, all right, I got to go. Yeah. So I don't think he's going to make it. He might. He actually might pop in the next couple of minutes, because I got here a couple of minutes ago.
well,
He's still singing. My wife yells in, he's still singing.
oh Lord,
All
oh
right.
Lord. Well, while you're on your way to the show, I played that really excellent St. Pete video. That was the very first thing I played. It's about 7 minutes. It is an outstanding summary of what's going on, why, the recycling issue, all these things. Very compact. I have to say, Ken, I thought it was really clean.
Well, we've said it a couple times. Thank you. We've said it a couple times. So it's getting kind of, we got to kind of.
But you explained the whole mechanism, and Kevin really got it. I thought it was, I didn't expect it to be, because it was kind of thrown together at the last minute, I know, but you pulled it off as you always do. And then, there is a lot of tremendous amount of materials coming out. As you just saw that quick clip that Kevin shot.
Yep.
There's more coming. We're basically moving into high gear in terms of going for high visibility, not just going
Content production. Right. Yeah.
like, oh, by the way, we have an offering. No, it's not.
No. It's boom. Yeah. And look, with the flow of information going to people on a regular basis, you have everyone walking down. So in New York City, people are getting punched in the face. And you go, well, how does that happen? Because they're looking at their phone, right? I mean, they're glued to their phones. Mixed martial arts, Krav Maga. I'm always like this, right? But everyone else is kind of walking around like this.
Well, women are generally not expected. In New York City, it used to be that you could just walk down the street, right?
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I mean, people didn't do that. And I don't know if you caught that, the guy walking down the street in Shanghai, there's a long video that I played from my X feed where he says how China has amazingly improved in the last 5 years, the 7 ways that it's improved. The air, people are more civil, right? There's automation has dramatically improved. Factories are now tremendously automated. There's no longer that terrible.
You're talking about Shanghai.
I'm talking about all of China.
Okay.
It's worth watching, because he's saying now, of course, yes, the cities, of course, are more sophisticated than the country. But it used to be, as he relates it, people walk down the street and they spit on your shoes. They have an open face cough in your face. That's all gone. He says they've been Japanified, which is fascinating.
Well, if you go to Japan, Japan is a completely different planet. I mean, how civilized and how calm and how clean it is. The point I was making about social media is with the flow of information, there's so much we are getting blasted at us at full volume that going, excuse me, it's just not going to work. You have to disrupt their reverie, the individual's reverie. You have to snap them out. And I think that the crisis that we are in as a world and the way we approach to solving it it's so intuitively good that people go, aha, but
you've got to catch their attention first. You've got to pull them out of that, that
so much
fire
play.
hose of information, right?
So much
Otherwise,
play.
it just goes right past them. And I think Kevin's very skilled. I mean, he's swimming in that ocean of data, right? That he's learned how to, kind of wake people up from, alpha mode to beta mode. And I think that, that ability to wake people up and get them tuned in, and then with the delivery of our message, and you and I and he are going to work on how he can rapidly deliver. You and I have said it a couple of times, so we're pretty good at, condensing the information now. I think once we download that with Kevin, he's going to be a real secret weapon in delivering that message. I tweeted earlier today that opportunity loss is incalculable. And something along the lines of, if you're really good at what you do and you're a really good communicator, you have an absolute, the loss for the opportunity loss you suffer from being unheard is immeasurable. You owe it to your business and your vision to make sure people hear what you have to say.
Well, that's very true. In other words, the things we have, sins of omission are more important in many ways than sins of commission, right? But people aren't aware of them because it didn't happen. But yet, it's like the saying, when you don't promote, a terrible thing happens. Nothing.
Right. Well, what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep. And like the famous New York Lotto, you got to be in it to win it.
Got to be in it to win it. Dollar and a dream. But no, it's true. The silence isn't just, silence is not golden. Silence causes immeasurable harm. And you'll never know the damage it caused because it never happened. Right. It's like you said, nothing. So, but no, I don't think we're going to be accused of being quiet.
So coming back just briefly to this China story, here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. What's happening in China, I mean, he was saying in my home country, the US, things have been going downhill and blah, blah, blah. Agreed. But I believe that what's happening in China is as a harbinger of what's going to happen here, which is we are going to get
swings back. Yeah.
More, we're going to get, the implacable force of automation. And why it matters is that we've been predicting for some time, because Peter Zeihan has been predicting it, and I like to listen to him, that we are going to see a lot of manufacturing come back to the U.S. It will be automated, and it'll be a totally different game. And maybe these cities and towns that have been abandoned are going to start being resettled. And that's my hope, is that we're going to see a bounce back, because things are getting pretty strung out in terms of infrastructure. That infrastructure problem is one that nobody is solving. Now, are they going to solve the problem with bridges? Yes, they are, obviously. But are they going to solve the problem with water? Not so obvious.
Not easily. So there's a town about 10, 15, 20 minutes from south of me. It's called Jeanette, Pennsylvania. It used to be just flush with people in the coal and steel industry.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a house there for $23,000, right? It's this depressed, you go down Main Street and every business is closed. So, hopefully automation can bring, because you know what, it's not going to bring back the factory worker. You can't beat China. China has slave labor. You can't beat slave labor. You can conquer it with automation, but technicians to work on the machinery, barber shops that open up that service the technicians, and guys that shine shoes. This is the peripheral economies that open up around, major ports of innovation. Okay. And I believe that, semi-rural America, the rents, you can get warehouse space for nothing. The old steel mill, right? Just revitalize it.
Okay. Let's take another look to your point. 90% of all water is treated by 10% of all water systems in this country.
Mm-hmm.
That is now flattening out. What does that mean? That means we're going to see a lot more water treatment happening across America. And that in itself is going to become a distributed industry in itself, right?
A distributed utility, yeah.
So distributing out that activity actually is going to create more and more jobs in the water industry that are local They're not some central utility. You're not going to have to be based in El Segundo in LA
Right.
or in the west side of New York City or whatever. It's going to be everywhere. And I
And
think
risk reduction, the risk reduction is stunning. I mean, it's impossible to disrupt 20,000 individual small systems delivering water to, a relatively small geographic. It's impossible. It's just impossible.
1 million plus really is what it's going to be, because already we have 150,000 water systems in America.
Right.
Some service only like 3,000 people. The town
Right.
of Colwood, West Virginia is a perfect example of one that we equipped. But the point is ultimately it's going to be counted in the millions what we're doing.
Sure.
It's exciting.
And if I do my math right, that's a lot of zeros.
That's a lot of zeros. With that, Ken has a crazy schedule, so I recommend you jump on it if you want to get the latest update on what's happening. We're very lucky to have a top executive actually talking to investors. This will not be forever. Ken
I'm
will
working very
not
hard
be-
to make sure it's not even next week, but that's okay.
Well, we're going to be, again, scaling up. What I covered in the that Elon Musk post is something very, very important. We've got to scale up all of our activities, including enabling Ken to be more of an exec and less of a guy on the phone, although we value that tremendously. Fill out your Zoom survey. AJ, who's not here tonight, he will definitely be looking at it. So do fill out your Zoom survey. And I'm going to follow up next week with that podcast, a very interesting podcast that I had on TNT Radio Live. But again, I didn't want to add another 15 minutes to the show. With that, so what's going on really fast? As you know, we announced the Environment Maintenance Partnership, which gets us into the mobile home parks. And that is the first water on demand implementation. It's very significant for us. With that, you will see another announcement very soon relating to the launch of the Regulation ACE test the waters, and also the more about the operating system of managing the network. And finally, on Monday after next, we will be in New York at LD Micro, and that will give us a chance to present a whole bunch of interesting ideas to the institutions and, of course, to you. So that's what's happening. Bob Bruce, Trump and water. Well,
I'm glad you asked.
that is a minor story. So we are blown away by.
At 8:56, we do this.
I know, but no, but it's actually in that announcement that's pending.
Yeah,
That's why I didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
But it's very, very important because we have in fact, Kevin Harrington will be commenting on it publicly. But the fact that there was such a success with a SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company, acquiring a private company, which was the Truth Social company, and what did it do? Who benefited? Who benefited, Ken?
Who made the most money? Trump made $5.5 billion in about 3 days. Now, lots of people play. So if you remember DWAC, remember when it was first announced, they ran the stock up, went from 10 to like 40, and then it was all over, and then it was 20. It was then. So I just spoke to an investor of ours. He says, yeah, I bought it at 40, and I punch it up. I go, have you looked at it? And he goes, no. I go, it's 73. And he goes, whoa, So the people who people who buy the blank check stock, even upon conversion from DWAC to DJT, they made money. But I promise you, they didn't make $5.5 billion. The insiders. Now, here's the thing about Truth Social. You could probably count on one hand the number of insiders that were part of that play. Trump, obviously one of them, probably a couple of his other, loyalists or people that helped to develop the software. But opportunities, they just don't happen that way. We have made it an overt effort to make dozens and dozens and dozens of people insiders. So, of course, it's a smaller scale thing, but that doesn't make it less exciting with less potential, especially in the long run.
Exactly. And so that kind of stuff is There's another reason why. These are very good points, Ken, but another reason why the target does so much better than the acquirer. Why? It's called redemptions. A SPAC starts out at
that's
100
the
million
point.
at $100 million. And because the whole SPAC world has basically it had a bubble that burst and so forth. So a lot of these investors bail, and redemptions have been running very, very high. We don't know how much redemptions will run in our case. We don't think it's going to be as high as normal, but who knows? The point is, if you have 90% redemptions, the owners of the SPAC only end up with 7.5% of the post-merger company.
Yeah.
7.5%.
Right.
And so
we
that
end up with the inverse, which
exactly.
is huge. Right.
We end up being, so it's a wonderful, it's almost like the mouse that roared in a way, right? Even though a NASDAQ company is acquiring us, because so many of these institutional investors bail because they made their money over 4 years through the fees they charge, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're out of here. Boom, I'm done. Guess what? We are now a very big owner. Now, if for some reason there's not high redemptions because they like what they see, great. Then there's more capital. So it's a win-win.
Right. It's a
Either
slower
way,
win instead of a faster win, right? Yeah.
what we're after at here is, of course, the NASDAQ platform. That's the most important thing. All right. Timothy, you're so cute. Wow. Holy baby Jesus. I don't believe my eyes is incredible. I'm redeemed. Holy smokes. Look at this. Well, all right. Paul
Okay.
Alra says, install a filtration system at Mar-a-Lago and we would be swimming in money too. Well, I guarantee you they have a filtration system.
Oh, yeah.
We don't do residential, but
I wouldn't really call Mar-a-Lago a resident.
well, but believe me, we do. You know, here's one of the downsides of doing very large, prestigious sites is it's very hard to promote them. We currently treat all the incoming water for a top premium chain. We've done several of the hotels already.
Right.
Not a word. We can't even say the name of the company.
They don't want you to talk about it.
Right?
Yep.
Because they're like, well, we don't want to. And that is something I'm fixing because I really hate being the best kept secret. With modular water, it's a different story. Dan Early gets the approval of places like Colwood. And by the way, next week I'm going to run a case study, the Colwood, West Virginia case study.
I think that's one of the more powerful case studies we've done in a long time, simply because it represents, if that can happen in Colwood, West Virginia, it can happen in Sri Lanka, it can happen, that is the global application to the remote village that, doesn't have water. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we converted 3,500 residents from septic to a full water system, all in one. James Rice says, how do I get on the reservation list for the new offering, at least until I get my $1 million liquidity event? Well, that's a very good point. It will be oc.gold/shark will be the link. That's at least one of them when Kevin promotes it. And but that will all follow. There'll be an announcement this week. Everything will be launched.
We'll provide that link as soon as it's up. And we could have it up, in the next day or two.
Exactly. OriginClear.com. The Invest Now button will at some point also enable you to do that. But stay tuned. We love that there were a lot of people here today. It was super exciting. Thank you all for being here. Every single week, this gets more fun and exciting. And Ken, you and I know that there's been some downer times in the past. So it's a good thing. It's a really good thing to be dealing. So thank you, Ken, for the hard work. And happy Easter to everyone.
Thank you for keeping your hand on the wheel.
Yes.
Even if it was one hand sometimes.
Right.
You were drinking coffee with the other.
Coffee for sure.
Coffee.
Lots of coffee. Anyway, happy Easter, everyone. And
Easter.
Don't let your kids overdose on chocolate eggs. And let's have a great weekend and a great week to come. Stay tuned. Be here next week. Lots more good stuff coming. Thank you all.
Good night.